Good afternoon. This video is exploring the new cut orderer for ZebraCut. This is a proposed feature and we're just exploring how this will work for the future. So the new features here are to improve the cut orderer. The cut orderer essentially orders the way in which the machine will cut your jobs. Make all of the cuts in each part, different tools, different parts, obviously different frames, and different constraints that you may have. The new features are proposed as follows. So we're seeing a reduction in travel time between 10 and 50%, depending on your job. That's quite a significant improvement, which will reduce your cutting time. Secondly, we're going to give you the opportunity to choose the best order if you wish. If you wish to be prompted, you can then choose the order that you think is best for your needs. We've introduced zigzag ordering, which is a much requested feature. We're also permitting the order to change the start point of the geometry. So changing the start point within a circle or within a rectangle, or indeed at any lift point in your geometry. And we're also allowing for automatic reverse cutting. So changing the direction of a line in order to more intelligently and more efficiently go through your job. You can turn both those two features off if you don't need them, and you can do that on a per layer basis. If you have one particular layer where the cut order needs to be exactly what you've set, we of course support you to have that remaining intact. But where you allow it to change, it can intelligently improve the cut order using these new features. So just to give you a couple of demonstrations of what can be achieved. So we have this ordering from the existing orderer in ZebraCut, 28 meters of travel time, and you can see it jumps around quite a lot on those blue arrows. Onto the new orderer, you get a much cleaner travel, and the reduction is from 28 meters down to 22. So that's about a saving of approximately a quarter of the travel time. On this example, this is an interesting one because it has very large, long pen marks that are almost kind of in parallel with the edges of the material. Essentially, they're seam lines. And this leads to quite a lot of travel on the parts, particularly if the order of those lines is not in an optimal way. Since we can now reverse the lines, we can now bring the travel time down from 27 meters down to 12 meters. So quite a significant improvement there in the amount of travel time that's going on there. And you can see there's much less wandering around of the machine there. One final example here, reducing the travel time down from 203 meters down to 130. So potentially some really big savings. Let's go ahead and look at a real example. So these are a nice little nest of parts here. You will not get the benefits of the new order unless you opt into it. So you can tell whether you're opted in if you go to the job config, which is this one here with the little bars. You'll see that you've now got a cut order, which used to be just called cut order. It's now called V2 old. So that is how you know you're on the older cut orderer. If you want to replace that with the new cut orderer, you would select it, you would delete it, confirm the deletion, and you would add the version 3 orderer to the list. And that's it. You can save that if you wish as your new job configuration, and then that would be part of all of your new configurations, all of your new jobs. If you just want to run it on one job, obviously don't save it, but you can change it out using that. So very simple to change out. We can now go ahead and run our job and run a preview. Just going to run with the default settings, which will put you this prompted window here to ask you to choose the order in which you wish to cut. So essentially you have a whole variety of different orders that have been computed, and you can choose the one that you think is going to be best. You have three kind of goals that you're always going to have to trade off. There's three different things to trade off here. I'm going to represent that on the triangle here. So you give the software a goal, and it will give you the order that is best for those goals, and you can obviously balance those goals appropriately. So the three goals: efficiency, that is fundamentally reducing the travel time as much as possible But of course that may mean the machine wanders around, wanders off down the bed and comes back again, cuts in any order that it chooses with no constraints, but it will be the most efficient. You might want to make sure that at any point during the job you have the largest possible piece of unused material, and that is to try and make best use of the material. So if anything goes wrong, if you flag a light guard or something, and you have to restart cutting, you've got the largest possible rectangle of material free. And if that's your goal, and that's the most important thing to you, put the little circle into the red area of the triangle and you'll maximize the material usage. Finally, you've got predictability, and what this tries to do is reduce very large jumps, large travels on the machine. So this essentially means the machine will try and do the work that's closest to it, and it will try and avoid very large jumps around the machine. That can be quite useful if you're offloading or you have an offload table and you want to make sure the machine is behaving as predictably as possible. So those are the goals. By default, you'll kind of take an equal balance of all of them. But if efficiency is most important to you, put it in the green. If you want to balance material usage and efficiency, put it into the yellow. You're going to have to learn which goal suits your needs, and it may well vary by job, but you now have control over this. So below that, you've got all the different orders, and you can click through them and see the variety of different orders that have been created. Many of them will be the same. If we take it into efficiency mode, you can see that it starts around here, it goes on through the job, and then comes back on itself. So it's followed this kind of nearest, closest all the way through, but it is kind of going back on itself. If we put it to material usage as the big goal, you'll see it's always going to leave the largest possible amount of the material unused, but that does end up kind of producing these large jumps vertically around the material. So there's always a trade-off. You're just going to have to choose kind of what you think is best. What is the level that you're wanting to look to. Each one of those is a different orderer. So for example, this one is zigzagging in X with a stride of 1,000 millimeters. And you can configure all of this, and we'll do a video of how to set up the orderers and how to choose the constraints that you want to put, so we give you full control over what the machine is doing. But as a good starting point, this is a reasonable range of orderers that are running. This is quite a nice one. You see it's kind of going these first three, but then you do get some vertical travel, but again you're kind of trading material usage for efficiency. But that's the choice. Once you've made your choice, you can just press accept and it will proceed as normal. I'll just take you through the simple options for the new orderer. So firstly, that pop-up that you saw is controlled by this let me choose option. If you don't want to choose, just untick it and you'll never see it again. It'll choose for you. Obviously it will choose based on the last goal that you chose. So you can do it once, choose your goal, and then forevermore, untick that and never see it again. Then we've got kind of options around, what's most important to you in terms of constraints. So we'd always recommend running with your respect layer order turned on, and that will ensure that, for example, insides are done before outsides, pen marking is done before cutting around it. And that's how we'd recommend that most people run, with respect layer order turned on and strict mode turned off. If you find problems, you can of course turn strict mode on, but that will mean that some of the inside-outside constraints can be broken because it's going to follow exactly what you said in the layer order, strictly following the layer order. So there's always a trade-off here. We'd recommend running with strict mode, with respect turned on and strict mode turned off, unless you find an issue, and then you can obviously turn strict mode on. But in that case, you are going to have to expect that sometimes it will break the insides and outsides. That can lead to parts being loose and then being moved around or caught by the machine. So very much would recommend you just go respect turned on and leave strict mode turned off. And part by part, it is quite a useful mode to have turned on. Essentially what that will do is it will, in this part, for example, if I just clear layers, it'll do the red pen marking, and as soon as it started that part, it will finish that part. So you do all the pen marking in that part, and then you do the cutting. That can be really useful, particularly if your cutting gets interrupted for any reason. But of course, you are going to take more time because you're going to be changing tools constantly. On every single part that you do, you're swapping between the pen and your cutting tool. So it is useful, but of course there is a trade-off with it. So you can choose whether or not you want to turn that on or turn that off. If you turn it off, then for example, you can do all the pen marking across the entire sheet and then come back and do all the cutting. You've only got one tool change, and that will of course be quicker. But it's your choice on what you want to do. These are two new options then, allow reverse and allow start point change. You can turn these on or off globally, and that will just choose whether or not the start point for each shape can be changed by the orderer or not. You can also override these per layer, but we'll show you how to do that in an advanced video. Finally, I just want to show you a little bit of control that you can exert on the orderers. So if you open up this edit window, set orderers, you can choose which orderers you want to run. Standard one, so I would recommend. You can turn on the new zigzag orderer if you'd like. And if you run into any problems at all and you can't produce an orderer, turn on the null orderer, but please don't use that one because it doesn't respect your constraints. But if you can't otherwise produce an order, you can turn it on there as a kind of a get out of jail free card. So once you've chosen your orderers, and I'd recommend just using these two, you can then set your kind of directions for the orderer. So I'd like to explore ordering in X+, let's say Y+, and also the nearest. So it will try those three different cutting directions. Or maybe you just want to try X+. You can of course do that as well. The more options you give it, the more orders it will produce, and the more likely you are to get a good order. Search grace, you can turn these on or off, just gives it more flexibility to trade between what it does next. The zigzag axis, you may want to restrict that to be just in X, for example. And then the zigzag stride. As it says here, if you do you want to do it in like mowing a lawn, so we might want to do a 500mm stripe up the gantry and then come back and do another 500mm stripe. That's very dependent on the size of your geometry. The default here is 1000mm. You can make that whatever you feel is appropriate for your geometry. If you leave it at 0, it will take the average bounding box of your parts and use that as the size of the stripes. So 0 is normally a good bet, but of course you can just restrict it and say, nope, I definitely want to do that in a 2-meter stripe, and you can do whatever you like within the 2-meter stripe, but you must do the first 2 meters, and then the second 2 meters, and then the next 2 meters. So again, you can just pop in here, change what your directives you want to give to the orderer, and then when you run the next time, it will respect that. So that's all done. We can go ahead and do another preview. And this time, because I've restricted the number of orderers that I'm running and the directions that I'm giving it, I obviously get fewer orders. Some of them are better than others. You can see the color changes there. The score is kind of somewhat immaterial. It's just a ranking based on your goal and then the aggregate of the efficiency, the predictability, and the material use. But generally try to go for a green one, which will be respecting your order. And you can see as I change the goal, the different orders that have been found changed in correspondence. So yeah, that's the new ordering. Please do let us know if you've had any problems. We'd love to see example files. Please send them into technical support. Let us know how you get on, and we're really keen to hear your feedback. We'll do another video at some point on the advanced features. There's a lot more control you can exert, but let's just try with the standard functions, and yeah, let us know how you get on. Thank you very much.